Hello, everyone. This is Tripp, and this is a special episode of Homebrewed Christianity, not just because it's David Trotter's first time on the podcast, despite doing lots of stuff together for years, including making a movie, but because after 16 years of doing this project online, starting in divinity school, all the way through a PhD program, teaching and working in congregations and such. In the last year and a half or so, I've transitioned to doing Homebrewed Christianity full time. And that has meant figuring out how to do it in a sustainable way, how to connect better with all the listeners, people that join the classes, how to utilize technology in a way where we're interacting and delivering content is smoother and easier for you. And so much of that process from the time we started the Homebrewed community a long time ago, David's been a part of it. He's been a friend and very supportive. And so I thought, well, if we're going to let people know about all the changes that have been happening this month at Homebrewed Christianity, having the brains behind the operation, the guru of technicalities, and managing those tubes that the internet runs on, then I thought it'd be great to have you on here, David.
Awesome. It's great to be with you, Tripp. You are an incredible person. I admire what you've developed over the last 16 years. Oh my goodness. Amazing what you've been able to develop and how you're investing in people and making a difference just in the world and obviously the whole world of Christianity. Very impressed by what you're doing.
Well, now there's a few like basic changes I wanted to just share up front for those people that are interested and have started noticing, oh, well, what are you doing on Substack, this Theology Class thing, and how's this related to all the stuff you've done up to this point? There's some very basic things I want to put on the table, and then maybe we can talk a bit about the bigger picture where Homebrewed Christianity's been, where it's going. And I think the biggest thing, the thing I'm most excited about is theologyclass.com. I started working on this 2 years ago, and it took luring you into helping for it finally to come to reality. But theologyclass.com is a new website we launched that has all of the Homebrewed online classes that we've done, from like the earliest ones that were just audio files of like Brueggemann introducing the Old Testament, or the first time Pete Rollins and I did Atheism for Lent and these kinds of things, the intro to Science and Religion with Phil Clayton, all the way to the last 4 years. I've been doing 5 or 6 classes a year, and you see the technology grow through them all. But usually people can join the class that's happening, and then the only way anyone ever accesses classes after they're done is that they were a member of the Homebrewed community at the elder and bishop level, donating $25 or $50 a month. Then you could get access to the old ones, which meant after there were too many, I had to find the URLs and the unique passwords for each classes. And let's just say that's a lot of emailing and organizing. And it was cumbersome for me on the time side. And I know frustrating for donors who are like, I just want to go through all 30 of these classes right now. And I'm like, hold on, let me go find these. So theologyclass.com started as a solution to how the ongoing supporters of the podcast got access to these old classes after they were done. And it didn't just stay there. So I'm super pumped about it. Not just because it saves about 2 hours of emailing a week.
Yeah, exactly. Tripp Fuller, customer service representative for Homebrewed Christianity. We want to get you out of that role and help people have instant access to all these courses. And theologyclass.com is an easy way to do it. It is, I think, 47 courses, something like that. We just are in the process of adding the latest one, Faith and Politics for the rest of us. And with either people can sign up for monthly, or they can be an annual member and save 50%. And get access to all of those classes. And we're trying to increase the quality of it even month by month, adding more features, whether it be better descriptions or more resources that go along with the classes. But it's a really great tool. And I just imagine it just continuing to grow bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, one of the things, and this is true with a lot of my friends that are in whatever you want to call it, edutainment, or like kind of like having a platform that is centered around education and online. Like so much of your time, like you never know how many people are going to respond to something. So your existence, the moment you don't have like a real job, in the sense of like working at a church or working at a university. You're kind of like permanently on the hustle, and then you're trying to find like, what are you going to do that works? And then how are you going to end up paying your bills? And how do you organize the time to get all these outcomes and stuff done? And launching something like Theology Class makes it a lot easier for people like members of the Homebrewed community who want to support everything we're doing, to get access to all the work we've done so far, and for me to have a much more a lot more confidence in the support month to month when it goes to those things that increase significantly when you become a parent and get older. Very different from when I started the podcast as a divinity student. So just for people to know, like doing these kinds of things is ease of use for y'all, but also it is quite an anxiety addresser to know that there's this kind of constant support coming from all the listeners and people that join the classes and such. And the other big perk out of it is, and this is already happening, where people join Theology Class, and people that are that have different groups or Sunday school classes or church groups can then pull all sorts of stuff from these other all these classes to use around the content and such that fits in their context. And I think it makes it both easy to keep up as an individual learner, like it tracks where you are in classes and all this kind of stuff. And for those facilitating, you could jump between classes and use video things like, oh, I want to do something on Jesus. Well, here's these two things from Dom. Oh, go over here. Here's the history of Christology over here in this one. Here's like science and Christology over here. And you could mix and match and use the things that fit in your context. So that's another perk of it, is someone who from the very beginning has thought, how do we use technology to take the gifts that happen in academic settings in the Ivory Tower and give it to individual learners who are asking questions, and faith leaders who want to bring in more of the larger wisdom that exists within the church into their congregation. And I even when I worked at a large mainline Protestant church with a very nice budget, that didn't mean you could fly in like who's who of scholars all the time. So hopefully we will keep hearing creative ways people utilize this. And also, if you do, let us know if you're like, oh, if you could help this way, or if people have tried this, or who knows. Like this is both something that extends work with the community of support, but also hopefully becomes a resource for community leaders to be able to, fine tune the content for their context.
One of the things that I like about it as well is, there are different Homebrewed Christianity courses that come up that I might go, I'm kind of interested in that, but I'm not sure I want to like fully jump in and commit to this particular topic or whatever it is. But Theology Class gives you an opportunity to explore all of these different topics and not feel like you are committed to, okay, I got to go through this entire course. I could taste it and then go, oh yeah, I want to keep going. Or maybe there's a particular author or speaker or professor that I really like, and I might go directly to him or her in a particular course, and then that might get me more interested in that content. So it kind of allows you to, I don't know, Tripp, if I want to say this, but it's like the hometown buffet approach to Homebrewed Christianity, right? You get all of it, and you can taste the different things, and some things you'll keep going back to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing that we've launched just recently is the Process This Substack. And I've been being lured to Substack by a number of friends that use it for quite a while. And in particular, Diana Butler-Bass and Ryan Burge, both of whom have very cool Substacks. We're like, Tripp, you don't understand. Like, it's way better than all the other social media platforms when it goes to engaging people. It's set up where it's easy to connect with people that will fit the vibe and interest and stuff you have. Just the culture of comments and engagement isn't gross. And as someone who kind of definitely has intentionally distanced themselves from YouTube comments, what happens on Twitter and Facebook and these kinds of things, that was alluring. And then going there, we've decided, one, like people that join yearly for Theology Class get the paid version of Process This included in their subscription. But also you can just join on there if you want, which is kind of like the equivalent of the old Homebrewed model, that there were like acolytes and deacons. People are giving $5 or $10 a month. When you get on Substack and join, those that are donating get all the podcasts without ads on it. You get the extended versions of certain ones, and then a host of different kind of like live engagements and things. And we've been trying different formats, and we'll continue to do so to see what generates the most interaction. Because the toxicity of a lot of internet culture is not incentivizing for me to spend time in it. And the volume of emails I even get is so high I never go through them. I do 3 hours of emails a week for Homebrewed. That's all I do. Some of them, and I try to do the ones where I recognize people that have real questions or this kind of thing. But I never get to them all. And so having one place where I'm putting my attention for engaging, reflecting, hearing back from people, learning along with, that to me is like the most exciting part of Substack. And so moving over there has also been a part of this transition in June that David's been helping with.
So one of the things that I know you're excited about is presenting kind of, it's not necessarily a class, but it's exploring an idea, a subject, a topic that you're really passionate about. And then, like you said, kind of having the ability through the chat for people to engage with you. If you're not familiar with Substack, I highly recommend that you jump on there. You can just join Substack, and then there are 2 levels. Well, I guess I should say 3 levels to be able to join the Process This Substack. One is just to become a free subscriber, where you get the content being emailed to you. And then the other is a paid subscriber on a monthly basis. And then the other is an annual member. And so any one of the paid ones, like Tripp said, you do get access to ad-free podcasts. You get access to extended versions. You get access to some videos. For instance, in this current class, I guess we're calling it a conversation series is actually what we're calling it, is with Kester Bruin on artificial intelligence. You'll get the follow-up podcast, kind of the assimilation video as a member, a paid member. So, but the thing that I think is most valuable about becoming a paid member is to be able to chat directly with you in questions that you pose and be able to kind of engage back and forth. And there's really a community that's starting to develop in those chat responses. So tell me about this idea of having a particular topic right now, artificial intelligence. Maybe tell us about artificial intelligence, that particular conversation series, and what is your idea behind these conversation series?
Yeah. So, one of the things that you get when people ask about podcasting, how do you do it? How do you figure out your podcast? A lot of people think, well, I need to find out, I want to shoot broadly. I want to connect with as many different topics and things as possible, and this kind of thing. And maybe it's because there's some celebrity podcasts that are huge and they do just that. And in general online, a lot of it has been, what is finding the right niche. So where people have a shared passion as you do, and the fact that you share passion with the people that engage what you're producing, you start to develop a relationship. And over time, you start to learn. I mean, I'm this way about my favorite podcast or editorial writers and this kind of thing, where you know that there are things you really love or really hate about them. That also works. And you get into it. And so Homebrewed Christianity has always kind of been driven around like, what are the things I'm like deeply passionate about and, went to school for. Like, I don't have a podcast about the Lakers, but I could talk just as long about the Lakers. And so,
or I noticed today you have your Frodo shirt on.
Oh yeah. My Sam and Frodo 2024.
My dad seriously wanted to name me Frodo. Like that was, I mean,
Oh man,
there was a
epic.
fight between my mom and my dad that he wanted to name me Frodo. Really thankful my mom won.
Yeah, in one of the I think one of the cool things of homebrewed Christianity is yes that it's like it's a way of engaging the Christian tradition and such, but also like my kind of nerdiness is inherently interdisciplinary. That's how you do like a divinity degree for clergy, followed by a philosophy and religion degree, and then postdoc in science and religion. Like the kind of a bringing together different academic disciplines to ask the questions and take seriously whatever the topic is, it is always been important to me, and you can see that over the podcast 1,700 and some episodes. Like, oh well, there's these different topics that come back up. The idea of these different series are kind of like intentionally trying to each month, as the series is going on, to have thinkers that represent these different disciplines, where you get, a scientist is working in this area, an ethicist, a lawmaker, a theologian, a biblical scholar, where you hear these different disciplines all kind of coming together, and so that as it's going through, the community on the processes Substack can kind of engage, raise questions, share resources, and this kind of thing. And it's in top of there being kind of intentional interdisciplinary conversations over the course of it. This time, like Kester's joining as my traveling partner of sorts, and we did an intro podcast talking about some of our questions we bring to AI and thinking about it and such, and we bring those up in these conversations with scholars from different disciplines and positions, and then at the end, the big kind of concluding podcast for the Substack members is going to be going back to those questions and saying, like, which ones of these do we still ask in light of these different disciplines? Which ones do we think we have answers or leaning towards answers? What new questions show up when the challenges, say, a lawmaker and an ethicist bring to the fore? What other kinds of things are there? And the hope is, like, unlike an individual episode of the podcast where you hear me thinking out loud after reading the scholar's work with them, you have a collection of them, and then you have someone else like Kester, who we both are doing interviews in this, beginning it together and ending it together. In that whole process, the community online can share things, raise questions, and be a part of it. And in that concluding one, we'll be doing it live. Everyone will be invited in. We'll do our thing. People will be able to submit questions in advance to it. Figure out. We're going to try different ways of interacting on it. But for me, the exciting thing is, so often the getting to engage the community has been happening just in either the world of social media, which I'm not too big fan of, or in these classes, which are kind of time set and intense. This is intentionally spread out. It's multidisciplinary. I have an ongoing conversation partner in it, and an interactive medium for the community to join along. And I'm picking topics like where I'm learning at the same time. Like AI is something I'm very interested in, have thought about. Going to be teaching a class on it in January at Luther Seminary to be a big part of a theology and culture, looking at the role of technology thing. But I'm there to learn, and we've had like tons of people saying yes to be a part of it that make it, I think, a huge learning opportunity for Kester and I, but also everyone that's, joins up. So processthis.substack, I think.
Processthis.substack.com. Yeah, for sure. And, I know you said this earlier, but I just want to reiterate the amount of time and energy, heart and thought that you put into not only the podcast on a weekly basis, but the courses and the Substack and Theology Class and all of this. Like, there's just no way that you could create these resources for the community without having financial compensation. Like, everybody knows that. And So if you're questioning like, well, why, the classes are donation, and now at Theology Class, there's a membership fee, and then there's Substack, there's an opportunity. Hey, you can always participate for free in these things, but I encourage you, jump in and support Homebrewed Christianity, because that's what allows these resources to exist. It's also what allows better communication vehicles, whether it's websites or customer service or whatever it is. All of those things are only possible because of your donation and investment toward what's happening here. So it's a great way to help Tripp and others on the team just continue to make things better and better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know a number of you over the last year have commented on just the response rate to questions around the classes and this kind of thing, and that's because David has started working with me again. So whenever you have questions about, especially the technical aspect or ways of us doing what we're doing better, his class info at homebrewedchristianity.com, a great email to have, especially since the internet filtering of emails changes dramatically, where you were getting it from us at one point and then it disappears. And if even Google couldn't explain to me how certain things disappear. So knowing that there's someone who is giving time and attention to it, that's always a good thing to know.
But Tripp, you've got podcasts that's coming out once or twice a week, Homebrewed Christianity. You've got theologyclass.com, that's a repository of all of the courses that you've done. You've got Substack, which is processthis.substack.com, which is a conversation series that'll be happening on a monthly or every other month basis. And of course, we post the podcast episodes there. And so if you're a paid member, you get those ad-free. What are some of the other things that we have in the works that you're excited about?
Oh, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things that I'm really excited about. We should mention, back in the day, you and I made a movie called The Road to Edmond, which is now available on YouTube. So if you wonder what happens when Dave talks somebody into giving us money to go make a buddy road trip comedy with progressive spiritual themes about a youth minister that gets sent into timeout from his church for welcoming a girl that comes out, then you too can go to YouTube and watch The Road to Edmond.
The Road to Edmond. Yes, it is.
You know, I tell people the second half is even better than the first because we'd been making a movie for a week.
Well, we made this movie with $75,000 total, the whole thing. And we filmed it in Colorado and Oklahoma in 2 weeks. Yeah, so it is quite an adventure. And I really encourage people to watch it with that in mind. It is not your Hollywood movie. It is an independent film, but made for $75 with a group of friends. And, the reason why I wanted to make that movie was because, I was a evangelical pastor for 10 years. And the thing that, and I have transitioned out of full-time ministry about 16 years ago, the thing that was the number one issue that made me question my own perspective on Christianity and theology was the lack of inclusion of LGBTQ individuals. And it always just nagged at me. And so for me, this film was a way to speak to those who were having those same questions and concerns that I was, and to be able to do it in a way that was thought-provoking and humorous, and is definitely an R-rated movie. And it's supposed to be funny and poignant and cause you to ask questions all at the same time. And, people will say, oh my gosh, the acting is so bad, or it's like, okay, well, none of us are actors.
Well, since we recruited people that listen to the podcast to playing roles, there's always that feature.
Right. That movie was so fun to make, and a labor of love, without a doubt. So
I was also attacked by a horse while we were filming it.
I convinced Tripp to get on top of a horse in the middle of the night. It was pitch black, dark. We were next to a river in Colorado in somebody's backyard that I convinced to allow us to film there. and
Next to
oh
a
my
maximum
goodness.
security prison.
Yeah, and then Tripp got bucked off the horse. He got bucked off the horse while I was going back to the Airbnb to get a check for the guy who was the horse, quote unquote, horse trainer, who was like 95 and got hit in the head by the horse. And so the guy, I come back and people are like, Tripp got knocked off the horse. I'm like, what? And then I go down there and this old man, his shoulder is dislocated. He's bleeding from the head. He's down on his knees. And Tripp is pacing around like he just saw a ghost. I thought, oh my God. Now, and the homeowner standing on the back patio going, why did I ask you to film here? And I have no insurance.
It was something. But yeah.
That scene I was like, well, can we still film that scene? Maybe Tripp, can you get back up on there?
That is. I haven't got on a horse since then and don't plan on it.
Well, and the previous time you were on a horse was
like fourth grade where I got thrown off. So I support horses as a species, just not intimately.
Horses do not like you.
No, but yeah, so that's there. But like one of the things we actually are putting a lot of time in right now is a big Bonhoeffer project for the fall. A number of you may be familiar with the Emerge podcast that we did earlier this year, where we wove together interviews like over 50 different people and to tell the story of the emerging church movement. And it was significantly produced and as an experience, it's like it's like a different genre of podcasting to do that kind of podcast. And we learned a whole lot in that process. And Tony and I joked after it that if we had known how it was going to turn out, we would have probably done a lot more planning before we started recording, because we just had these giant conversations and needed a 2-minute version of a story and stuff. So what I've been doing, what we've been working on with Jeff Pugh, who people are Homebrewed probably know him because he wrote one of the Homebrewed guides to the end, and we've done 2 other Bonhoeffer classes together over the years. Is we want to do an audio documentary that tells the story of Bonhoeffer in parallel to the rise of Nazis in Germany, and do it in an audio documentary format where it's telling the story, where you don't assume the kind of things theologians, when they talk to each other about Bonhoeffer, assume, like familiarity with the history, context, text. So it's very much a kind of an intro to that period of history, using the story and wrestling. Bonhoeffer's wrestling with his own faith in it. And I'm super pumped about it. And Jeff has put tons of work into helping us put together the story and the outline, as someone that taught Bonhoeffer for a long time, as part of the Bonhoeffer Society, that kind of thing. And as a professor, taught this period of history and the kinds of questions around anti-Semitism, thinking about theology after the Holocaust and all this kind of stuff. So his kind of wisdom from the classroom and comfortability in Bonhoeffer scholarship is really helping us hone in and tell this story, I think in a compelling way, but in a format where, there'll be 8 like 50-minute episodes that are beautifully produced and stuff. But Jeff and I had this idea after my son Elgin got assigned a project in his AP class at school, like to make an 8-episode Netflix series on a biopic of someone, and he picked Bonhoeffer because probably my parenting. And it was a fun thing to talk to him about. Told Jeff, and then boom, this whole thing emerges, and I'm like, there's no way I want to figure out how to do this whole thing. So luckily, being friends with David, who's actually made documentaries before, and such, that's how you got brought in.
Yeah, so I actually have had the opportunity to produce and direct 3 documentaries before we did The Road to Edmond. And it is a unique process of telling a story. And sometimes you know where the story's going to go, and other times there's lots of surprises along the way. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be able to help you produce this and edit it. And I'm not sure if you mentioned that there's actually a movie coming out. I'm not sure. Maybe you said that. Maybe I missed that in the last episode.
It's not ours.
A movie coming out about Bonhoeffer in November. And so the class, and just to clarify, There's going to be another class with Tripp and Jeff, and that will begin in September, and then a accompanying podcast and a book as well. So there's all these different resources, and specifically also setting it up so that churches can use this as a resource too. And it'll be 8 weeks over the course of September, October, leading up to the launch of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to give you like an idea of like what the kind of development of, I would say, like steady support through things like Theology Class and Substack make possible, is the kind of investment in a lot larger project. All this Bonhoeffer stuff will be equivalent to doing 3 other classes when it goes to the amount of hours of energy and investment in it. But out of it, there won't just be like, oh, a class, or a podcast series. It's going to be kind of like multi-layered, where there is the class of digging deeper into Bonhoeffer's work with Jeff and I and a bunch of these Bonhoeffer scholars. Like the who's who of Bonhoeffer scholars are all woven into this documentary series and will be a part of the class and such. But then we have the book and the podcast series that kind of follow each other along. We're making short, like 12 to 15 minute videos for each of the chapters of the podcast and book that you could show in a discussion group, and everyone could have either read the book chapter or listened to that podcast episode in the week or not, and still get enough to have a conversation. So for us, it's like if you're going to dig in and spend so much time like learning and thinking through how to tell this story of Bonhoeffer, the rise of Nazis in Germany, how can you also create multiple avenues for people to engage the content and use it? And so by having like the Digging Deeper class, the podcast series, the video series to use, and the book and things, it's a lot larger investment of time and energy. But we hope a lot of the people that are regular Homebrewed community types, people are already engaging in classes and listening to podcasts, now have easy tools to invite your friends that might have heard of Bonhoeffer. Like, yeah, well, like Nazis are bad. Why did the church go along with this? Like, to create ways that you can easily feel comfortable facilitating people engaging it, because there's these short podcast episodes, or you can read this book, or here's the discussion video. And for everyone that wants to go deeper, there's like the complete nerd out option of digging with the Bonhoeffer scholars into his text and going deeper. And I think underneath that, like there with Theology Class, with the process, this series is a recognition on my part that the kinds of questions people of faith ask today have the kind of critical edge in complexity that are really hard to tackle in a group of people your own age in a Sunday school class, or with a meme on Instagram, or something like this. To take the question seriously, it used to involve having to go to seminary or divinity school or taking classes, and that involves student loans or moving and all this kind of thing. And that used to be fine when the people that did that became the stewards of the tradition and clergy. But the kind of questions that used to be in the academy or in the leadership of the church are now just in every mouth of a layperson. And so how do we give the space and the resources for people to wrestle with it? Hopefully all 3 of these projects reflect kind of my deep commitment to not make student loans a requirement for getting to engage in the best scholarship around, say, AI, or to hear the history woven with the story of Bonhoeffer around the rise of Nazi Germany, or, this kind of thing. And there's so many topics like that on Theology Class. But I hope in the launching of these things and doing these kinds of projects, that we generate the kind of support from the community that we can do more things like this. I have a list of ideas that are sitting there, and most of them come out of being either getting questions from people in the Homebrewed community, where I think to myself, well, the real answer for this is something you learn in the Intro to New Testament. And I don't want to put in an email that, but I bet I could, on Theology Class, create an Intro to New Testament class that brings together lectures from the best lecturers doing it, and give that as an opportunity, right? Or you hear someone like Eric Metaxas just horribly articulate Bonhoeffer's legacy and utilize him for something completely contrary to his deepest commitments, and you're like, yeah, that's bad. And then someone's like, well, but what about this? What about this? And you're like, yeah, well, if you just kind of knew any of it, like that would be. And so this is like a response to that. And so in kind of making it easier to support what we're doing and easier to engage the content and engage in conversation with the larger community, part of it is because I would like things to end up for Homebrewed as a larger entity become more sustainable, so more time gets freed up to do these kind of creative projects. And we have other video ones that are ideas. We got a host of opportunities, and more of them become possible with something like this. Like Theology Class right now are built on these classes that pop up. The moment Theology Class is sustainable without doing these other classes, people join just the class, then we can start creating content that's unique just for Theology Class, say like a dictionary, theological dictionary around concepts or figures. We can start making the kind of intro classes that you could use individually or use in a group setting. Those kind of things, like to do them well, you have to create the space in my schedule or be able to purchase the time essentially of other colleagues and have the time for the editing, production, communication around it. And so, being a part of this is really being a part of creating more resources and content for people to be able to take the questions they have seriously and engage in the wealth of resources that exist without having to grab a student loan. And if you want to get one, there are plenty of cool places because there are a lot of guests that work at schools, and you can all find them out by listening to the podcast. So, yeah, thank you, David, for being a part of this. And I'm super excited to get to do it, and extremely, extremely grateful for all of you that have been supportive and encouraged me over 16 years to keep doing this. And I'm still catching my breath from the crazy, weird risk of just this being the only thing I do, but a bit intoxicated with the possibilities now that it occupies a lot bigger, a volume of my time. So
here we go. It's only been 16 years. It's only just begun, Tripp.
Yeah, there you go. Only been 16 years. All right. Bye, friends.